Badlands, explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Badlands Book Club, covering Chapter 7 tonight of Ralph Pizzullo's Stolen Elections.
Chapter is called Cartel del Sol.
Oh, it's going to be a good one. And
which isn't actually the name of it, but
Soul. No ask.
Joined by the two lovely ladies, Ashe Epp and Colonel Towner Watkins. How you guys doing?
Awesome.
Living the dream.
Living the dream. This has been an eventful week, man. We just got the unsealed. Well, no, I'm saying like the last 7 days, not specifically like this week. We just got the unsealed probable cause affidavit in the Fulton County search warrant, and it was absolutely riddled with Venezuela references. I mean, there were so many Venezuela references that I thought I was going to have to know Spanish in order to read it. I'm being totally facetious.
How many Venezuela references were there?
0.
There's not
0.
Yeah,
not one. But dude, I'll tell you what, man. If you've ever watched a Why We Vote episode or read one of my articles on the Gateway Pundit, that probable cause affidavit was nothing new to you guys.
Here, I'll pat you on the back.
Well, you too. You too. I mean, you're my co-host on Why We Vote, and we've been rocking that, everything that's going on there. So just glorious to see, this coming to fruition, the vindication, so to speak, and love it. Let's get into tonight's sponsors. First up, Badlanders. Are you all familiar with Loaded Gun Coffee? They've been longtime supporters here at Badlands, and you may have met them in person at our guard events, but did you know they are a family-owned, veteran-ran shop out of Lake Havasu, Arizona, and every bag of their whole bean coffee delivers high-octane, patriotic punch of flavor. With a long family history of commitment to freedom, each bag is a testament of pride and honor. From the skilled farmers who cultivate each blend to their roasters that handpick the finest coffee beans from around the world, Loaded Gun Coffee has mastered their unique brewing methods, resulting in the best tasting coffee around. The coffee is smooth and delicious and the perfect way to start your mornings. Head on over to badlandsmedia.tv/loaded and use promo code Badlands to get 10% off your order. And if you are in the Lake Havasu area, stop in their newly renovated store and say hello. That is, again, badlandsmedia.tv/loaded, promo code Badlands. Stay loaded, Badlanders, with Loaded Gun Coffee.
Heck yeah. Good
I
stuff.
love Loaded Gun. Every morning for me. Every morning I need my loaded gun. And this loaded gun as well.
Here.
I always have a loaded gun, whether it's coffee or the real deal.
Censored.
Oh yeah, it's YouTube. Well, you can show guns on YouTube. It's in a holster. It's not
for
brandishing.
now.
Is it brandishing a firearm if you show it in your own home on a live stream?
I don't know.
It's not something I would regularly recommend.
Yeah. I feel like you're inviting problems you don't want.
There's shooting channels.
But probably not.
All right. Well, Ashe, you want to talk about gold? You can brand gold.
Gold has exploded to new all-time highs, surging over 70% this year. I looked it up today. It's over 72% year over year today, and silver is currently up 148% year over year, shattering records and outpacing everything. From everyday Americans to billionaires and central banks, everyone is rushing to these timeless safe havens. That's why Badlands has partnered with the award-winning Gold Co., who makes protecting your savings with real gold and silver straightforward and stress-free. If you're serious about safeguarding your future, go to badlandsgold.com today. You will get their free gold and silver kits, plus you could qualify for up to 10% in free bonus silver, and that is an unbeatable offer right now. Silver is still up over 80. Act fast. Visit badlandsgold.com or click the link in the description. One last time, that's badlandsgold.com. And you have a pretty good theory about, don't you? Isn't it you with the silver theory?
What's
we're
that?
At the bottom. We're at the bottom of silver.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to rebound back. It usually the 80-50 rule, right? The 80-50 rule, 80-to-1 ratio is you buy silver, and a 50-to-1 ratio is when you sell it. Or is it yeah, it's 80-50, or is it 50-35?
No.
I think it's 80-50. I don't know. Yeah, don't quote me on that. Not financial advice.
But go buy gold and silver at balancegold.com.
Yes, I do recommend that 100%. All right, ladies, we ready to get into the chapter 7 here?
We are.
Let's do it.
All right. So on page 101, they begin by talking about Hugo Chavez taking office in 1999. He was elected in 1998 and was going to remake the republic. Soon after taking office, he started pushing a very aggressive agenda of radical reform and called for a public referendum, which basically was going to lead to the rewriting of their constitution. Now, I can't imagine why Venezuela would want a new constitution since their previous one had been written while they were under the control of the CIA, but whatever.
Sure.
On
Crazy.
August 12th.
Wait, you just so I actually underlined the part of that you skipped because the radical agenda, right? His very aggressive agenda of radical reform, the part that they cite is form a constituent assembly of representatives from across Venezuela and from indigenous tribal groups to rewrite the Venezuelan constitution. So the people, so it's a populist movement. We're talking about giving some voice to the people. So we have to oppose that.
To include the indigenous people that had basically been excluded from everything prior to Chavez.
Yeah.
So on August 12th, 1999, the new Constituent Assembly voted to give themselves the power to abolish government institutions. Now, I want you guys to listen to this. The people were going to have the ability to abolish Congress and the judiciary, and to dismiss officials who they perceived as corrupt or operating only in their own interest. Please sign me up for that.
It's supposed to be what we are. That's supposed to be our government.
Please sign me up for that. But that's radical to the people writing this book, which is exactly the way the American Republic is supposed to operate, but it's radical.
It's inverted. It's inverted, and the idea of the people having power in Venezuela is painted as a radical bad thing. We have to keep it centralized and in the interests of the United States of America.
Yes, and they characterize it as being allowed to create a parallel government made up of his military cronies.
He was elected, right?
Well, he is, but it has nothing to do. There's no parallel government. It's a new government of the constituents. And the major, basically, they did what El Salvador just did in getting rid of all of the corrupt judges. That's what Venezuela, that's what Chavez was doing. Getting rid of the corrupt judges that had been put in. I would love to be able to get rid of our corrupt judges, right? So they provided a mechanism to do that. They provided a mechanism to get rid of the corrupt Congress, and they had a what do you call it? A bicameral setup. And they went to a unicameral, so they basically just have one body of Congress as opposed to two. That was the radical reforms that was supposedly of the constituents that is supposed to be so horrible. So,
I'm still stuck on parallel government though, because he was just elected, and he was elected ostensibly because the people want change. Right now, we can argue, oh no, he was fake. I've been there, buddy. I get it, but we have to, pretend like elections are real. So he is elected. The criticism of Chavez here sounds like, and this, I feel like this would make ghosts' ears itch. Sounds like the criticism of President Trump. He's going to get rid of USAID. He can't do these. These are independent institutions. Yes. He can't reform these things. He can't stop these things. It's dismantling the shadow power structures. That's what they're opposed to.
Yes, that's exactly what they're doing. And those shadow power structures that was in Venezuela were aided and funded by the CIA.
Mm-hmm.
All right. With Chavez firmly in control of the state, military and economy of the country came the birth of the Cartel del Sol. Now, I almost spit out my copy the morning I was reading. As a matter of fact, I have
think you
copy
texted me that.
stains.
I think you did tell us that you spit out your
texted us
coffee. When you
Yes, I have copy stains all over my book as a result of that single line. Because you can even Google, just ask Grok when the Cartel del Sol came about. Where did that term come from? That term came from a journalist writing about the CIA-controlled National Guard, 2 senior generals, because they wore the crescent of a sun on their uniform where we would wear stars.
Mm-hmm.
They called them the Cartel del Sol, not their the way they write it in here. And it was because they were a cartel trafficking drugs under the auspices of the CIA control. There's even a 60-minute episode where they're reporting $1 million shipment under the control of the CIA being shipped into well before Chavez was ever around, of the Cartel del Sol. Okay? So no, Chavez did not create it. Oh my gosh, I about died.
And
Okay.
I asked you this before we started the show, but any insight into why the name of this thing is so different depending on who's saying it? Because the people who wrote this book gave the book and the story to a couple of journalists who pronounce it differently. Now that it's becoming sort of mainstreamed and government entities are talking about, they're saying Cartel de las Soles or de los Soles or whatever. Like, this is Cartel del Sol. And that's interesting to me because the 2 whistleboys in this book are the experts that have been tracking this and are telling the American people about it and exposing it to the world. What are the odds they get the name wrong?
It would be very odd.
It would be very odd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Del Sol would be the proper name. Las Soles would not work. That's wrong attribution. Female.
De los Soles. Is
Yeah,
how I've heard it said recently. Let's look it up. Let's look up what the.
If you're saying it plural,
Well,
if you're saying it plural, like there's factions of it, it could be De Los Soles, but Del Sol is the whole organization.
Cartel de los Soles or Cartel of the Suns is what the DOJ superseding.
Yeah, there's an S on the end of it.
Yeah, and it's Los Soles, not Cartel del Sol.
Correct. It's completely wrong. And again, it's a made-up term that got the root from a journalist writing an article well before Chavez was around. It's not even a real thing. Okay? It was their National Guard trafficking drugs.
It doesn't have to be real. People just have to believe it exists.
Yeah, it's a made-up word, phrase, whatever. All right. From a journalist.
Sure.
Its existence resulted from the 2 important political groups, the Cuban government, which literally had nothing to do with it.
They have such a hard on for the Cubans, these guys.
They do.
They really do.
And the FARC.
Yeah.
Which again had nothing to do with it. As a matter of fact, let me just do a little history lesson here. As I've said before, the FARC is a very small minority of Colombia. The Colombian government is the narco state. The FARC were the resistance fighters to the narco state. They taxed drugs. They generally did not participate in the making of them. As a matter of fact, there is one instance where this lab was in kind of this no-go zone between where the FARC controlled and the Colombian narco state was. And the CIA went in and killed some FARC, stole their uniforms, and put them in this dilapidated lab in order to take pictures and say it was the FARC running the labs in Colombia, not the Colombian government. Okay. So that actually happened. So you've got this tiny little group that's along the border of Venezuela in Colombia called the FARC. The FARC was literally had nothing, because the CIA was fighting the FARC the whole time. I mean, I had a friend that was in my Air War College class who retired, and his brother had retired. He was a special ops helicopter pilot. His brother was also a helicopter pilot, and he had retired and was going down there for the Department of Defense and the State Department and the CIA, flying missions against the FARC. So we pay to fight the FARC, but somehow they're alleging, because of the Cartel del Sol had just been created and they were in bed with the FARC. It's literally the exact opposite. Prior to Chavez, the Venezuelan government, controlled by the CIA, was in bed with the narco state Colombia against the FARC. Okay? So literally none of this is true.
Storytelling.
All right. And then it goes on to say that the FARC had been founded in 1966 as a peasant force promoting agrarianism and anti-imperialism. That is true. Increasingly, it's funded its operation through extortion, kidnapping, ransom, illegal mining, and the production and distributing of cocaine. That last part is, that last part is not true. Again, they were taxing the
peasants went hard.
Yeah, the thoroughfare of cocaine trafficking. They were not producing it, and they did kidnap a lot. That's how they raised money. They would kidnap wealthy CIA narco elites, family members, and hold them for ransom to raise money. That part is absolutely true.
That's why the CIA hates them so much.
That is. All right. So, moving on. Meanwhile, the Colombian government, led by Fidel Castro, was
Cuban.
Cuban government, led by Fidel Castro, was pushing Chavez to embrace his radical leftist agenda that was spreading throughout Central and South America, which it was not. This coincided with the attacks on 9/11. And I love the fact that they evoke 9/11 as an emotional trigger for people. Yeah, that's PsyOps 101.
It is. And it's also the premise for why the CIA just totally dropped the ball for 20 years in Venezuela, right? We weren't paying attention because of the brown people on the other side of the world. So we didn't look at the brown people to the south. And oh my gosh, you guys, we got hoodwinked.
Yeah. The U.S. State Department and intelligence communities lost interest in Latin America because of the absence of the Soviet threat. Well, wait a minute. I thought
I
you
meant to
told me
look up
that
the funding of that. Do we see that reflected in the funding?
no, no, not at all.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, during the Plan Colombia, the funding went through the roof. Anyway, all right. So supposedly, Cuba is, in bed with the Soviet Union and communism and all that other stuff, but somehow the State Department just lost interest in it, even though we've continued to try to. I mean, we were just in Cuba funding, the CIA was funding an app to get people on it, just like yesterday. So come on.
This is kind of interesting because we're talking about post 9/11, right? So Patriot Act, rise of kind of the surveillance state, but around the same, within 5 to 7 years, wasn't Obama saying the 80s called and want their foreign policy back? There is no Soviet threat. There's no threat of Russia. Russia's fine and great. Everybody's overreacting. So that would lend credence to kind of not paying attention in the region. I don't think for a second that's true, but it supports the story of it. Well, we dropped the ball on Russia, and by extension, Russia's proxies in our own hemisphere. We dropped the ball and stopped looking. But then it's really hard to reconcile with the position of the past 5 to 7 years about Russia.
Correct.
Like what changed?
It's also hard to reconcile with the foreign aid that's poured into Latin America because it doesn't bear any of that out.
Yeah, it's all just storytelling.
we're still calling Nicaragua communist and we're still calling Cuba communist. So, but ignore that.
I'm particularly critical of this book today because I read Chris Paul's Chicken Egg Chicken this morning, which is all about storytelling and whether stories precede events or events precede stories. Everybody should read it over on his Substack. I'm your moderator.substack.com.
Okay. Castro, seizing the open field, saw the opportunity to launch what he called an ideological invasion. Not like we've ever done that. It began with winning over the hearts and minds of Hugo Chavez and his control of the world's largest oil and natural gas reserves. So he's just a pawn in Castro's little tiny island hands. Castro, the guy, or Chavez, the guy who tried to coup his government, worked for years going around through the entire country, campaigning to be president, newly elected president. He's all of a sudden a Cuban pawn.
So like the concept of Cuba, which is, doesn't have nearly the same potential that Venezuela has in terms of resources. They're not even close in comparison.
No.
How is Castro able to influence a nation that is so much more economically dominant? Or is this Cuba trying to extort the like kick out the CIA influence in Venezuela? Like, is this a battle for the sovereignty of Venezuela or control of it? It makes it sound like Cuba somehow is manipulating Venezuela and the CIA has been trying to infiltrate it. Wouldn't, if you hear this, if you were to read the Cuban version of this book, every Cuban mentioned would be CIA.
Yes. Here's how Cuba, the tiny little island that is relatively poor compared to Venezuela, pretend this is my magic wand.
Right.
somehow Castro has a magic wand.
Yeah.
He has literally nothing other than the magic wand in his pocket to offer in exchange for Chavez's undying devotion to Castro.
He's very charismatic.
So I had kind of the same reaction to that line that you had, and I wrote in the margin here, contradicts page 96, because the line on page 102 is, it began with winning over the heart and mind of Hugo Chavez and his control of the world's largest oil and gas reserves. But on page 96, it says in 1982, according to the whistleblowers, Castro summoned his two most promising Latin American assets to Havana, a young Venezuelan paratrooper named Hugo Chavez and former Colombian guerrilla Gustavo Petro, together with his head of intelligence, Minister of Interior Alberto Coloma Ibarra. Castro outlined a plan to install them both in power. So why did he have to win their hearts and minds if he was grooming them since 1992?
Great catch. That's a fantastic.
Very good.
That doesn't make sense. And also, what is that? What is this timeline where they say, because the one thing that might explain it is if they say Castro seizing the open field saw the opportunity to launch what he called an ideological invasion. Was that in 1992 or is that after 9/11, which we're in the paragraph right before that sentence? I'm confused about the timeline of what we're being told here, but it seems to be full of contradiction.
Yes, as is everything in this book.
Yeah, fair.
Okay. So now that we've got our magic wand and a weird timeline.
Expecto Patrono.
With Chavez in his fold, because now he's somehow captured him, and using the tools of Venezuelans had developed to manipulate elections. So we must be post 9/11 because they didn't have it before that. He helped install and support leftist Nestor Kirchner in Argentina, Rafael Correa in Ecuador, and Evo Morales in Bolivia, and Daniel Ortega in Nicaragua, which is like literally ludicrous. Daniel Ortega, whether you like Nicaragua or not, was very popular in Nicaragua because he was part of the Sandinistas that got rid of Somoza. So you're not going to need to rig an election for Ortega to win. Evo Morales, they literally hate because he eradicated the illegal coca plants in Bolivia and legalized the production of them and the making of its medicinal purposes use of it, and basically got them out of the Crystal Triangle. So they had a hard on for him.
And Evo Morales is the one that Condoleezza Rice wouldn't let them overthrow, right?
Yep.
In the book.
So, yes, in the book.
Yeah.
Which isn't true, but anyway.
But that's the story that we're told, is that they were going to go do this righteous coup because Evo Morales in Bolivia was terrible and had to be stopped. And they went to the State Department, and Condoleezza Rice was like, no, you're not going to overthrow the government of Bolivia. And they were like, damn it, we're going to do it anyway.
Yeah. When has the CIA, who don't take their marching orders from the State Department or the president, ever listened to
elected?
anybody?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The only remaining truly conservative governments in South America was Colombia. You know, they're narco capital of the world at this point. Yeah, I put ha in the corner, in the margin.
Yeah, well, I underlined the next line.
Go ahead.
Then Castro directed Chavez to build closer relationships with Russia, China, and Iran. Okay, how? Like, what did that look like? From what's the back channel? What's the communication? Is Castro making the introductions? Do they already have relationships? That's a quite a statement that builds into successfully they did it, right? Because, you know, we have to invade Venezuela right now to stop Iran. So obviously it was successful. How'd that work out? How did it happen?
So here's the phone call. Hey, Hugo, since you pissed off the CIA and kicked them out of your country, here's the only 3 countries that will trade with you because they're the only 3 countries that don't take foreign aid from the United States. Yes. That's the substance of the phone call.
And the only way that this was able to happen, next line, while the U.S. foreign policy and intelligence leaders weren't paying attention, Fidel Castro convinced President Hugo Chávez to engage with and start cooperating with the FARC in Colombia. Wait a second. I thought that they weren't they? Was Petro FARC? Wasn't he, or at least connected? No. Because, well, we're cooing Venezuela and Colombia with these 2 leaders that were grooming in 1992, right? We have 2 leaders. Yeah. We're going to place them. But it doesn't seem like that plan really started until they were in the process of executing it. And then it's like, well, we have to convince all of these people we've been grooming for a decade. What?
You're getting bogged down in the timeline.
I want the story to at least make sense. The plot has to make sense.
I'm just hooked on the leaders weren't paying attention.
I know, it's my favorite. I just wrote in the margin LMAO.
Are you kidding me? When are our intelligence assets and agents not paying attention? We just forgot about Venezuela.
9/11. We're looking over in Afghanistan. We can't possibly be paying attention to South America.
Well, we weren't paying attention to the Hezbollah in Venezuela. They're huge in Venezuela.
Until we needed to use them for narrative purposes. No.
I that was my spitting coffee out my nose moment, Colonel, when I read that line.
While we weren't paying attention.
Oops. Yeah. I forgot the largest gas reserve.
But aren't the whistleblowers, Gary, right, is his whole world is this region and this intelligence and the relationships, and he's the guy because of his network and his relationships and everything in there. Was he also not paying attention?
I think he was chief of station in Bolivia at this time, wasn't he?
Got it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, he wasn't paying attention. He was. So the narrative is that when we are operationally engaged in Afghanistan, the entire rest of the CIA and the State Department shuts down.
Obviously.
So
Yeah.
So there's no such thing as doing 2 coups at the same time, except for every time we did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Wow,
except
so
we
stupid.
cooed Ukraine, Georgia, and a bunch of other Eastern European countries while we were still engaged pretty heavily in Afghanistan.
In the African
What?
ones too.
You mean they didn't close those parts down?
I mean, we had the Orange Revolution in 2008 and then the Maidan in 2014. I mean,
You just
Georgia,
tell the rest of
the
the world,
war
guys,
rages.
hang on. We don't have time for you right now. So pause. We're going to focus on Afghanistan and we'll come back to you. And oh my
So you're
gosh.
saying they actually were looking at 2 theaters of operation at the same time?
I mean,
Crazy. I know. But we do, at least as far as the Jack Ryan series has taught me, we do have stations in all of these countries, right? With
They just
CIA chiefs
Yes.
of station and intelligence operatives
Ambassadors.
gathering ambassadors. And we,
FBI.
the American people, support an entire infrastructure for the intelligence agency to run around the world being scumbags. And I don't really think they have an excuse to not pay attention because there's a war going on somewhere else.
They were on the beach.
Fair. Yeah, they'd legalize blow. So, you know, what are you going to do?
And it was Fidel Castro that convinced Chavez to cooperate with the FARC.
Evil mastermind.
It actually would make more sense if they weren't lying all the time. For Hugo Chavez, the resistance fighter that he was against the CIA control of Venezuela, it would actually make more sense that Chavez would champion the FARC, knowing that they're the resistant fighters against the Crystal Triangle hold on Colombia that the CIA had. But see, this can't be about this bad CIA. So we can't say that Chavez would have a relationship, a supportive nature, being the resistant fighter himself with the FARC, because then you'd have to explain that the FARC were resistant fighters against the CIA-controlled Colombian government. So we can't do that. So we have to have Castro over here looming on the side, directing Chavez, because he's so fucking clueless, he doesn't know what he's doing, even though he was elected president. Okay. So.
It all makes sense.
Yes. And until it doesn't. All right. So
We'll
the
just
next
move past that.
paragraph.
We just move past those parts.
Huh?
No, nothing.
All right. So in early 2000s, FARC had already engaged in peace talks with the Colombian president. These talks initially failed for various reasons.
I won't get into those here.
Yeah, well,
It's above your pay grade.
I can tell you why, and it had nothing to do. It had everything to do with the CIA, because
They haven't scripted that part out of the rewrite out yet.
They have to have the FARC. You have to have a counterbalance to continue to fund Colombia against the threat. You can't eliminate the boogeyman. Okay, it's just like in Ukraine. You know, they're being used as the boogeyman for countering Russia. So you have to have 2 factions always, or your storyline don't work.
Yeah.
In June 2016,
And importantly, you have to control both, right? You have to maybe not full control, but you have to at least be able to steer both sides of the controlled opposition dynamic.
Not control, you have to be able to contain. That's very different. So the FARC is legitimate. They were not control. They were not like controlled opposition, but you have to be able to contain them, because you can't actually allow them to win. Like they did. They learned that in the Sandinista fight. So they tried to contain the Sandinistas with the Contra effort in order, originally, while Somoza was still in charge. Okay, so the Sandinistas are there. They tried containing them. They got out of control and took back the government. So they're very much in trying to marginalize legitimate resistance and trying to box them in. But you can't justify sending billions of dollars to Colombia without having some pocket of resistance.
Yeah. That you have to fight. Yeah.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
a year later, FARC ceased being an armed group, disarming itself and handing over its weapons to the United Nations.
Weird. But
United Nations is not CIA, right?
I'm not even going to talk about the United Nations.
Okay.
I can't. That'd be a whole show. Okay. And somehow they're writing this book when in 2025, still telling us that the FARC's a problem. Okay. I have the last part of the next paragraph. Increasingly, they shifted their strategy towards one of advancing their leftist ideas through the legal political system, much like Hugo Chavez had done in Venezuela. So FARC decided to take the CIA's handbook of becoming a political party and actually competing in the arena of ideas. And supposedly that's a bad thing.
Yeah, but I had the first part of the paragraph because
Okay.
there's no triggering event for this, as far as, at least as far as they're explaining it. Over the first 2 decades of the 20th century, the FARC slowly let go of their ambition of violently overthrowing the country. And then the part that you say, if they're going to use legitimate institutions and they're going to go and, go in and co-opt the institutions. But what changed? What was that? Why did they start? I wrote in the margins, why? Because the UN were their friends now? Like, how did that, what happened?
So if you go back in the history, this is decades long. So like from the 80s, it's been 40 years. The FARC had lost tons of people, and they knew that there was no way that they were going to be able to overcome the Colombian government with its fortification from the US and the CIA. They had, by this time in 2000, like the mid to 2010s, 20,000 excess paramilitary trained by the CIA. They're sending them all over the world. If you look at the casualties in the Ukraine, every report that has ever come out of foreign fighters, the predominant nationality of all of those reports are Colombian. And that's because our special forces and the CIA has trained. The last count that anybody dared write down was 20,000 excess paramilitary fighters, trained assassins, to rent out to the UN and to the NATO to go fight anytime they want to overthrow a government. The military contractors, and I don't know if you know this, CannCon, but in Iraq, if you go back and you look at the statistics of the private military companies, the preponderance of the people were from Colombia because they worked for pennies on the dollars compared to Americans.
I did not know that.
Yes. It's crazy the number that was there. Wow. And that's because they're basically like a big gladio cell. They can be used anywhere for anything. So the writing was on the wall.
And in the next paragraph, we're citing a 1992 CIA report as our source of authority for their involvement in narcotics.
Yeah. During the same period, they increased their involvement in the trade of narcotics. In 1992 CIA report, the agency, quote, acknowledged that the FARC had become increasingly involved in drugs through their taxing of the trade in areas under their control. And that's what I was saying. They didn't actually produce it. They didn't have the chemical capability to transform coca leaves into cocaine, but they had enough area that was used for transportation that they taxed it. That is true. 2 years later, the DEA came to 3 similar conclusions. One, that any connection between drug trafficking organizations and Colombian insurgents were ad hoc alliance of convenience. So they're not formalized. 2, that the independent involvement of insurgents in Colombia's domestic drug production, transportation, and distribution is limited. And 3, that there is no evidence that the FARC or ELN have been involved in the transportation, distribution, or marketing of illegal drugs in the United States. The ELN had, not the FARC.
And what year was that report from? It doesn't.
92.
Oh, well, it says 2 years later, so 94.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the DEA and the CIA is saying the FARC isn't, other than taxing it, even involved. But up till Chavez gets in control, and then all of a sudden, the Chavez converted them into a drug trafficker and gave them the resources to create labs and chemicals and all that stuff. It's just ludicrous. That is absolutely not true.
And of the 2 whistle boys that we know, one of them's background is CIA and one of them's background is DEA. Just
yes,
notable.
Especially when you look at the CIA's role and DEA's role in controlling the Contra operation, because they controlled the entire thing. But that all of a sudden changed in 2000.
Oh, I just wrote in the margin, CIA analyzing the drug trade is hilarious.
It's hilarious.
I was like, I can't read my writing. What is that word? Oh, it's hilarious. Hilarious is the word.
Yeah, so taxing drug laboratories represented an important organization income. He defended using drugs as a source of funding. They were taxing the trafficking of drugs. They did not have drug laboratories. The only drug laboratories ever associated with the FARC was a scam. It was a false flag. In March 18, 2002, the U.S. Attorney John Ashcroft indicted leaders of the FARC after an 18-month DEA investigation into their involvement in narcotics trafficking. Now, let me just say how ludicrous this is.
Agreed.
So the DEA station in Costa Rica ran the entire Contra. The one DEA guy that went to El Salvador's air base there with eyes on the drug traffickers. He's watching the planes come in and out. He's watching them load. That DEA officer was fired. He basically had to leave El Salvador, and then basically was made later to retire after being given a closet and a desk. The one DEA officer in Latin America that spoke up about the Contra operation being ran by the CIA and DEA out of Costa Rica was run out of the country. So the DEA has literally no validity, or obviously the CIA, in anything that they say. So, but we can get indictments. We can indict a ham sandwich, right?
And do.
Well, especially when you know you're never going to catch the guy. It's all for show.
Among those, and then they list a bunch of the people that were involved. It's not really that important, other than the whole point of them saying this is that they're trying to document an argument that the FARC is involved in drug trafficking as opposed to just taxing it. So all at the discretion, all at the command of Chavez, who's not even in the country. And that command came from Castro sitting over on a small island in Cuba.
Shout out to Corey at Break the Chains Media, who just rated our channel. What's up, Corey? Everybody who came in. Good to see you guys.
So now somehow Castro and Chavez are going to compete with the CIA's drug trafficking network.
Sure.
Okay. And then it goes on to say by 2005, the FARC magically transformed itself into a major international drug trafficking organization. They did this by taking over the drug production and trafficking capabilities of the Medellin and Cali cartel.
Yeah.
Didn't they give all their guns to the UN though?
Right?
Yes.
So
And
is
you're
it
not
this is
going
like
after the
January
Medellin-
6th? They were going to take over the drug trafficking operation with no weapons.
This is mind-boggling to me. They
Yeah, it's real dumb.
literally think that people are ignorant. The FARC, who after what is it now? Okay, so from the late 70s, early 80s, up until where are we at now? In 2005. Okay, so 25 years of never gaining a single inch of ground. The FARC took over the two biggest Colombian cartels that are backed by
While
the
unarmed.
CIA.
While unarmed.
While unarmed and with the entire infrastructure of 20,000 excess mercenaries on the payroll of the CIA lounging around in Colombia.
They weren't paying attention though because of the
9/11.
terrorism.
9/11.
Yeah. You can't blame them. Everybody was watching terrorism in Afghanistan. Even the people assigned to Venezuela, apparently.
I'm really shocked I don't have more coffee stains on my book. It's one crazy thing after another. Convinced by Fidel Castro to cooperate with the FARC, Hugo Chavez gave FARC safe haven in the southern part of Venezuela. So I guess the unspoken accusation is that Chavez rearmed them.
No, it doesn't. It does. I'm sorry. No.
Yeah, you can't have unspoken in here.
But somehow they magically got weapons to take over the two biggest cartels in the world, the Medellin and the Cali cartel.
Okay, hang on a second. They didn't disarm themselves until 2017.
Okay.
So they were armed when they...
Where are they getting all the arms from? Do you think that they have
Russia.
arms dealers? So just so that you guys know and your audience knows, one of the most dumbfounding things to me, because I didn't know this before I did my research in Colombia, Israel had an advisor to the Colombian president, and Israel built Galil rifle and ammunition manufacturing plants in Colombia. So they're a very well-armed terrorist organization, the Cali cartel and the Medellin. And again, numbers wise, you're talking about this tiny little element of FARC up against the two meanest, badass narco cartels in the world. But somehow, mysteriously, they were able to take them over with no training and basically limited capability.
Did Castro help them though?
I'm sure by some magic wand. I might have to actually get me a magic wand.
Yeah, you need to hold it there. I want to rewind real quick back to the Medellin and Cali cartels. And it does say, which they'd both been defeated by the combined efforts of the Colombian government and the DEA. So does that mean that our own government went in there, defeated these cartels, and just left a void for the FARC to come in there and take over, and nobody, like, that's when you're most vulnerable, right?
Units?
Yeah, well, yeah, but that's when the FARC would be most vulnerable, is when they're taking over a new operation, especially one that the DEA has been monitoring all this time and understands the intricacies of it and how it works. And the DEA just left that vacuum void for another organization to come in and take it over.
Okay, hold on. Let's back up. So we're supposed to believe that the Medellin and Cali cartel don't exist now.
Yeah, pretty much.
The CIA and DEA. And the one thing that resisted the Cali cartel and the Medellin, that the CIA has created the plane Colombia and pumped billions of our tax dollars into Colombia to fight against the FARC. They left the FARC.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
It's a tough sell.
Wait a minute. For 25 years, the Colombian, again, I have friends that went down there and flew missions against the FARC. The CIA's single focus is disrupting the FARCs because they're taxing they're drug couriers that are going through FARC territory, and they hate the FARC like they hate Castro. And they did such a great job and eliminated the Medellin and the Cali cartel, which would be news to the Medellin and Cali cartel because we're still indicting them today. So somebody needs to tell them that they don't exist.
Well, shh, don't tell them.
And then the very people that they've been fighting since the 1980s, they left alone. Are you kidding me?
It's just because the UN is super good negotiators and convinced them to choose the side of light, right? They just decided they convinced them to give up the life of crime and to do good things through truth and justice and politics and legal system. That's the story.
I can't even. Okay. That would be like doing a ground invasion in Cuba and leaving Castro.
Yeah. And you can't do that because he is the big bad.
Yeah, supposedly the FARC's the big bad. We spent billions of dollars fighting them.
Criminal
for
mastermind.
25 years. Holy crap.
Which is why we should probably keep our eye on Justin Trudeau.
I mean, isn't that the same concept with the Taliban? We fought a 20-year war against the Taliban, and now, we're funding them because
they're good now. Yeah.
Well, for clarity, I think the Taliban was the good guys, not the good guys, but they were the
better of the two.
The better of the two all along. But we were told that they were the bad guys and that we have to exterminate them. And it seems like it's the same, narrative right here.
Yeah. Well, they were both CIA narratives, so.
Well, there you go.
That may be why they magically align with
same playbook, different names. They just, scratch out the names.
Yeah.
Was there reporting when we defeated those cartels? Did we celebrate that and take a victory lap about it?
I actually looked to see if there was any DEA announcement. Nothing. Yeah.
Because that is the assertion. They were the Medellin and Cali cartels were defeated by the Colombian government, the DE and the DEA together, defeated such that their drug trafficking operations were able to be lifted and shifted. Like we were moving work to India.
And what's really weird about that? Since the CIA had their terrorist training camps down there, and the CIA guy writing this book or putting words in the author's mouth, why is there no mention of the CIA?
Because the purpose of the book is to rewrite their role.
So the CIA has been intimately involved in every aspect of Colombia, but they don't want to take a victory lap for defeating the Cali cartel, which we were told was
it's not about the credit, Colonel Towner. It's just we just do it for truth and justice and save the world, man. We don't want the credit.
There was some reporting in the early 90s that the U.S. and the Colombian authorities captured Escobar in 93 and defeated their leadership. And then the Cali cartel in 2006, it says that DEA materials later refer to the Cali cartel as dismantled, noting that by 2006, its remaining leaders, including Rodriguez Orjuela brothers, had been captured or extradited. And that's it. And that's from their own.
The Medellin cartel was defeated in the 90s? Because that messes up the timeline.
So the Medellin cartel was not defeated. They decapitated Pablo Escobar, who was one of many leaders of the Medellin cartel, and they're still talking about the Medellin cartel today. So as a matter of fact, Pablo Escobar was assassinated because of, and I think we may have,
we talked
he was
about
the
this.
competition. He's going outside. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So they'll take out people that are not under their control. And they did take out a couple of the Cali cartel, but the Cali cartel is very decentralized and there's multiple leaders of different sections of it. So you can't arrest two people in the Cali cartel and think the Cali cartel is gone.
I feel like that's true about any cartel, though, isn't it? Or organized criminal network. That is their starfishes, not spiders. You can't just chop off the head and kill them. If you attack them, they will replicate.
Yes. Well, they've already replicated. They have people in the wings waiting to take over the networks. Yeah. Okay. So it goes on to talk about, I just wanted to make mention, not necessarily read it, but the one and only actual reference or quote is from Insight Crime. And we
Think tank.
talked, yeah, we talked about that a little bit before. And what's interesting to me about the Insight Crime website, if you go and read the articles that they author, which I did like probably 5 or 6 of them about the drugs, no mention of the CIA in any of them, which is kind of weird. Right?
Yeah. Well, our officers are clandestine, and whatever they were there for, they were doing for good guy reasons. And we're not going to out them because that, hurts the purpose. So we're just going to not mention it because, just assume that if they were there, they were doing good things.
So they wrote an article that says Cuba played a big role in establishing drug trafficking within Venezuela, though their connection with the Colombian guerrilla through their connection with the Colombian guerrilla forces. The FARC is said to be the organization. And then it just goes on. Okay, so you have, and let me just explain this to people. There are selected publications, and Insight Crime is one of them, where when you need something written that you're going to have, that you're going to use as a source document or justification for taking an action, you will publish an article and seed it to these certain entities that produce crap like this. And then you pick it up and use that as your source document. So if you go back and you look at, and I actually copied those words and found that article, it's not sourced. And it's very interesting just looking at who they have on their staff and some of their other articles. They don't tell you the whole truth. They are a gatekeeper. So
they say Cartel del Sol in their Insight Crime write-up. It's very interesting to me that this thing you just can't nail down what the fucking name is. Sorry for the language.
All right. I don't know if you want to talk about anything else in their excerpt, because I wrote the excerpt after I found out that it was, they actually call it the Cartel del Sol.
Just Day Solis. They don't have the Los. Cartel of Sons. Not the Sons, just Sons.
Okay.
I think we should talk about the drug Costco. Should we talk about drug Costco?
Go ahead.
Yeah, Venezuela served, in Martin's words, and Martin Rodil, if you're, for folks, just refresher, is one of the whistleblowers in this, that is the forms the substance of this book. And he is Venezuelan by birth and an informant for the DEA. And he says, Venezuela served as a kind of drug Costco. It functioned as a huge drug warehouse and distribution center. He explained in the beginning of the process, Hugo Chávez called in his general, who was the head of military intelligence, Hugo Carbajal, with a B, and directed him to start providing all the material support needed to the FARC to help them strengthen their financial capacity through drug sales so they could buy more weapons to fight the Colombian government. And this was when was this? Are we in 2005 still, or did we move on?
No, there's no timeline on that.
So interesting that they're attributing to the FARC what the CIA was doing in Colombia.
Yeah. That's when the Venezuelan military. So this is their origin story of the Suns, right? The sun patch. Yeah. That's when the Venezuelan military got involved, and together with the FARC formed the largest drug trafficking organization in the world, known as the Cartel del Sol, Cartel of the Sun. The name sun comes from the sun epaulets Venezuelan generals wear on their uniforms instead of stars. Between 2004 and 2007, drug trafficking in Venezuela grew. According to a White House Office of National Drug Control Policy and the U.S. Government Accountability Report, which, just for, the record, the U.S. Government Accountability Office has failed in every critical objective for which it was formed. The amount of cocaine being trafficked annually through the country increased from 50 metric tons to 250 metric tons. And the Venezuelan military's involvement with the Cartel del Sol became, so here it's del Sol, became more public, with various National Guard members being arrested for cocaine trafficking. And that's talking about Venezuelan National Guard members, right?
Yes. So let me just make a clarification here. They're aggregating 2004 to 2007 drug trafficking and attributed to Venezuela, that it grew from 50 metric tons to 250 metric tons in 3 years. Do you know that on average over 3,500 metric tons a year is shipped?
It's 5 globally?
Yes.
5.
3,708 was the exact number. Tons.
Metric tons.
Yes. So the biggest, what do they call it? The largest drug trafficking organization in the world is Cartel of the Sun. Yeah. Shipping at the best number, 250 metric tons out of 3,700.
That's not even 10%. That's like 7%.
That's not the largest?
I guess it is. According to them, that's nuts. That would mean that
just believing CIA's numbers on all fronts, though, right? All of the numbers.
No, actually the metric tons number comes off of, there's multiple sources and all of them have something a little different because it's illicit. You don't actually know the total number, but it's based on a formula of people dying, arrests, and things that are confiscated at ports and at the border. So of other countries too.
So it's a statistical projection on how much there is, and it's based on things that have nothing to do with weights and amounts of drugs. It's a statistical extrapolation of how much drugs there is based on,
but they're always done
human impact of drugs.
They're always done in weights, like the confiscations at the border and stuff like that. You always hear
people dying isn't, right?
No, but I'm saying that it's a combination of all of those things. It's not an exact science, but even using the retarded numbers, because it's illicit, it's a black market, there's literally no way to know what that number is. But somehow they are able to say that the Cartel del Sol is the biggest one, even though they have less than 10% of the market. Again, it is a well-known fact that over 80, depending on what statistic you use, to 90% of the cocaine coming into the United States comes from Colombia, not the FARC, Colombia.
Interesting.
And not through Venezuela.
So the part for me that jumped out about that, so setting aside that this is a incredibly small amount of drugs, I didn't have that context when I read it, but the jump from 50 to 250, that feels like it would need a catalyst, right? Because they get to 50 by taking over the 2 largest drug cartels drug trafficking operation, right? They get to 50 and then they jump to 250. Where does that come from? And I wonder if they're setting up, China got involved or something, right? We're going to get some explanation for what appears to be an inorganic, growth trajectory.
And it says here that Venezuela's military involved with the Cartel del Sol, although they call it Cartel del Sol, became more public, with various National Guard members being arrested for cocaine trafficking. But wait a minute. I thought it was a Chavez operation. How are they arresting National Guard people for trafficking drugs if it's a government approved activity?
Yeah, who is arresting them?
I don't know.
They don't say. That's a great call.
That's the same point that we've raised with the Joe Biden border, you know, where they say they're emptying out the prisons, and it's like, wait, who put them in prison?
Yeah.
Right? They say they're emptying out their prisons and sending them over to the United States. Well, who put them in those prisons, and why are they all of a sudden now being released? But
yeah. Okay. So moving on. Much of the history is included in the indictment of Venezuela Maduro and the 14 other then current Venezuelan officials who were charged with narco-terrorism, corruption, drug trafficking, and other criminal charges by Bill Barr and the DOJ back in 2020. I don't know how you arrest people if it's a government sanctioned activity. That seems a little weird to me, and I don't know if you guys want to go through.
In the interest of time, we probably should skip the indictment.
Okay.
Excerpts.
Yeah.
Folks can read it on page 107.
But they actually wrote Cartel del Soles.
And they added an accent mark.
Look at a little accent. Cartel.
Hey,
cartel.
Yeah.
Cartel.
So in this chapter, they have spelled the name of this cartel 4 different ways.
But it's all for good.
We deserve better AI writers.
Well, the DOJ, but where they write it correctly is from the DOJ indictment.
Yes.
And the DOJ consistently calls it Cartel del Sol. And
the one part in there I did make a note: dispatch processed cocaine from Venezuela to the U.S. via transshipment points in the Caribbean and Central America, such as Honduras, which is interesting. So they actually was getting drugs from Honduras, but somehow they were. Have you ever looked at the map? That's a little weird. That they're shipments from Honduras, but somehow they're tied to Venezuela. Do they have a tracking device on this shit? Just asking.
I still want to know who's arresting them. So the Venezuelan military is involved in drug trafficking and yet arresting members of the military for drug trafficking?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I don't know. And then the rest of this talks about all of the people that were involved that were named in that indictment, you know, and they have a cute little chart again of all of those people. I don't know that necessarily matters. I think when we get over to page 109, where it talks about Carvajal.
Yeah, with a V this time. And we finally get a mention of elections at this point.
Yes, was captured in Spain and extradited to the U.S. Currently sitting in a New York jail awaiting trial. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
When did that happen? Do we know?
It says the 2020 indictment alleges that in 2013, Carvajal coordinated the notorious Air France case where French authorities seized 1.3 tons of cocaine from a flight arriving at the airport where Carvajal's nephew was at the time the military officer in charge of security. So, and then it goes on to say in 2017, the U.S. Treasury Department sanctioned, I don't know how you say that guy's name, Aresamani for playing a significant role in international narcotics trafficking.
Well, hang on, because the sentence before that, they say another influential player within the cartel is Tariq El Ayasami, which definitely does not sound like a Venezuelan name. It sounds a little more Middle East.
Doesn't, does it?
No, not at all. But it says Venezuela's Minister of Industries and National Production, and currently the country's vice president. Delcy Rodriguez, at the time this book was written, is the vice president of Venezuela. So I don't know when they say currently the country's vice president, I don't know if they're referring to 2017, but you wouldn't say currently, you would say then the country's vice president. So again, I think that's another egregious error that they made right there. And that when this book was published, it was Delcy Rodriguez who was Maduro's VP.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And then we're back to Insight Crime, because it's such a reliable source, and it's the only source that they actually use in here. That Asamani, however you say his name, oversaw narcotic shipments from Venezuela and protected other narcotics traffickers in Venezuela. Well, not these guys back here that got arrested, but whatever. Why are you having to protect narcotics traffickers in Venezuela if it's a state-run entity?
Fair question.
I don't know.
Okay. All right. I honestly, I don't understand any of this. And they must really think we're stupid. All
We've got another awesome Hispanic name there, Walid Macled Garcia. But because you add the Garcia at the end, it's okay.
Okay, the surname Aisami, often spelled El Aisami or Aisami, has middle and it pulled off of Tarek El Aisami from Venezuela. Says has Middle Eastern and North African roots, specifically within Arabic speaking and Druze communities.
You needed to look that up. I could have told you that just from.
Well, I needed to confirm it because we don't know. We're saying how it sounds.
Oh, okay.
It actually is Middle Eastern or North African.
Now we get
because Iran, guys, don't you know?
Now we get into Diosdado Caballo being the
War on Terror.
Being the he's the mastermind of the cartel and the drug trafficking now.
Oh my gosh.
It's nuts.
All right. So where do you want to head from here? I have
to the bar.
I will be right behind you.
Yeah.
It talks about the Cabello guy. How do you say his first name?
Diosdado
Cabello, former head of the National Assembly and close associate of Chavez since the early 1990s. But the man most associated with heading the cartel that doesn't exist was Cabello. After Chavez's death, many people believe that he would succeed Chavez as president, although he christened Maduro as that role. The next paragraph, over the last decade, corrupt Venezuelan government officials have systematically looted Venezuela for billions of dollars, which is weird because that's exactly what we were doing. But we're not supposed to know that.
Certainly not supposed to talk about it.
Far too often, these corrupt officials and their co-conspirators have used South Florida banks and real estate to conceal or perpetuate their illegal activity. That's exactly what the CIA does. So they're literally projecting onto Venezuela what is well documented from the 1970s on of the CIA doing. They're literally accusing them of it.
Is the reason that they were able to get away with the money laundering through South Florida banks because the CIA and the authorities weren't paying attention because of terrorism or something?
9/11.
9/11. Like we just all of the institutions started paying attention to the war on terror and forgot all other types of crime. Like that, this is the one thing that does not make sense to me of any of these kinds of stories. The Hunter Biden suspicious activities reports are the same thing for me. There are extensive checks and balances against financial crime. There are institutions upon institutions upon institutions that exist to prevent and prosecute when they fail to prevent, to prosecute financial crimes. The only way that the largest drug trafficking cartel in the world was laundering money through South Florida banks is because they let it happen. There is no other way that goes unchecked.
Correct. Which is how the CIA did it.
And they had Holder, right? So it's probably he was just magic. Do you have a Holder? We did a Holder magic wand too.
Yeah. So we're supposed to believe that all the banks down there are in bed with Venezuela and Castro too.
Well, they couldn't
In South
know
Florida?
because Holder was doing all their due diligence on everything that came through their bank, according to the book. Everything that came into the United States from the region of Central and South America. Remember all of the different due diligence entities. So coming in to do business, set up business here, do anything in the U.S., the due diligence was done by one of these guys' companies.
Yeah.
Watchdog, fact checker, public trust ensuring companies.
Yeah. And then it says these indictments expose the devastating systematic corruption at the highest levels of Maduro's regime, according to the DEA. That, by the way, is not the DEA guy that was tracking money laundering that got arrested for money laundering recently. That's not him. Just thought I'd let the audience know that. So the DEA is saying that Maduro's guilty of what their chief inspector for money laundering has allowed to happen in the Miami banks, because he was just arrested after he retired from watching the money laundering to money laundering himself. Just throwing that out there. All right. At the beginning, on the top of page 111, at the beginning, said Martin, the Venezuelan government generals were just sitting there watching the FARC move the drugs and taking some money for allowing them to do the logistics through Venezuela. Well, except for somebody was arresting a couple of them. But 2 or 3 years into this, they started realizing how profitable it was. And instead of just taking 10,000 per kilo, then they started saying, no, you bring your drugs, we buy from you, and we resell to Mexican cartels. So the ones that that the DEA hasn't gotten rid of yet: Sinaloa, Tijuana, and whatever that other one is.
Guajira.
Okay. All right. Then
and they
Gary
faced no opposition. This cartel, this most powerful drug trafficking cartel in the world, was effectively dismantling, according to the storytelling, and taking over the operations of these other cartels, and they faced no opposition. The cartels were just like rolling over for them.
Yeah, none. Because it's Venezuela.
Sure. Obviously.
What the Venezuelans did was cede the southern half of their own country so the FARC could move many of their people and assets out of Colombia, and they became cultivators and growers of drugs in southern Venezuela. Okay, yeah. So, and I'm sure that during this entire time, there's lots of reports that I haven't been able to find about all of this stuff happening. It's just now coming to light.
And again, what's the timeline? That's the thing that's missing. Anytime they're making these big, bold assertions, especially where, centers of power move, we don't get a clear timeline. I feel like we're jumping back and forth in time a lot, which is why I'm giving them a lot of benefit of the doubt in that sense. But it's why it feels disjointed and like the timeline doesn't make sense. It's because we're jumping back and forth, but there's no clear delineation of where we are in time as we're going through this.
There isn't, but if you go back to the early 2000s, because this is shortly after Chavez's presidency began, which began in 99. So you're talking within the first 5 years of that. I mean, that's an assumption. That's because they don't lay it out. Because it says
Oh, good.
Well, they say they allowed the paying of this. So supposedly this big bad Cartel del Sol, who runs the biggest thing, was just, taking $10,000 off of every kilo as it passed through Venezuela. And then they got greedy and took it over. By the timeline that they're outlining, they said for 3 years, 2 or 3 years into the business of doing this is when they did it. And they supposedly did it after Chavez come to power. So you're talking in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
So I just did a quick AI fact check on whether or not Venezuela ever ceded the southern half of the country to FARC, and it says no. All they did was like logistics and stuff for them, basically. Never gave up any of their country, or they made all their drugs in Colombia and used Venezuela as a trafficking route.
That's what they want you to believe.
I guess.
And it would be easy if you guys know anything about Venezuela, especially the southern part of it. It would be easy to put some of the very low paid National Guard members, like, the sergeants, on your payroll to look the other way as your mules are going across the southern part of Venezuela. That's perfectly a legitimate thing, but you can't take the entire Venezuela government into that. So I don't want people to think that there wasn't any drugs being trafficked through Venezuela. It is likely there were, but it is not at all likely that the entire government of Venezuela was in on it.
But wouldn't it, if you were paying...
Why would they be arresting them if they're in on it?
That was going to be my question, is if you have you're paying National Guard members to look the other way, certain factions of the government, right, as being alleged, are paying, but it would really hurt the operation and set you back if you were then arresting them.
Correct. Correct. So I could see, anybody can see that. Do we not have military people that sell military secrets? Yes, we do. We have people that have been on the payroll of the government that have been bribed to do bad things, right? So that would then mean when you find out they're doing bad things, you would arrest them, which they said they did. When they found them, they arrested them. And so that would mean the government is not part of it. That means there's factions that can be bought off, just like we have people in our military that can be bought off.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's not the story they want us to believe.
Sure.
And then it says Venezuelans sent processed cocaine and heroin to the Mexican cartels for distribution. That's how the Cartel del Sol was born.
I was waiting for you to get to that part. Then at some point, split in two.
30 years later. So this is a rebirth of an organization that has existed. But again, it's so important. They can't tell you where the actual origins of it are, because if you knew that they were on the CIA payroll, and they were, then it makes the whole book sound stupid.
Spoiler alert.
Can we land this one here? Because I have a show at 8 that I have to get back to. So
still have several pages. So we'll
there's a lot to go in this one still.
Finish the rest of 7 and try to do chapter 8 next week.
I don't know how long 8 is, but
8 is very long. We'll probably get through about maybe half of it.
Everybody hit the thumb for us. Helps us out. We appreciate it.
Yes.
This is a painful hour and a half for all of us every week. We do it.
This one in particular
love
was.
You guys. And Valentine's Day is on Saturday. Some people call it Valentine's Day. For those people are. Alpha's one of them. Yeah.
The following ad is rated M for mature. Soft Disclosure wants you to get naked this Valentine's Day with limited edition his and her bundles that save you 20% off the individual retail prices. Proprietary oil infusions, grass-finished beef tallow, goat's milk from American goats, locally grown herbs and ingredients. Soft Disclosure is putting America First fruits on your skin.
And for these sexy bundles, we've added an all-new boar's haired beard brush and a solid jade gua sha. And the reason I'm here is because Alpha doesn't know how to say these words.
Gusha. His, hers. We need a moment to calm down. Don't hide your skin. Disclose it. Get naked this Valentine's Day with Soft Disclosure. Head over to softdisclosure.com and save 20% off individual retail prices with our his and hers customizable bundles, and use promo code NAKED to save 15% off the rest of the site. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. Promo code does not apply to bundle discounts.
Valentine's
That's my
Day.
favorite. That's my favorite commercial ever. I
Oh,
love
it's
it.
not better
I'm
than
here-
this. I am a kung fu master. That's the best one. That's the best one.
No, I love
believe
Ashes.
this
I'm
is
here
good on-
because Alpha can't say this word.
Well, Cheryl and I were faced with, we're trying to get the ad out as quickly as possible because we're going to miss the window for Valentine's. And he said Gusha.
Gusha, guasha, gusha.
Yeah. So I sent him the
Valentine.
phonetically written out,
Valentine.
and I sent him an audio of me saying the word correctly, and he still recorded it incorrectly. So that was when we
I
changed
love it.
Well, if you ever ask him to say Venezuela, he says Venezuela. Venezuela.
Nice,
like,
I like it.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in. Stay tuned. You got Brad and Abby coming up at 7:30. I'm going to be over on my channel at 8 p.m. Interviewing Travion Cutie.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome. We're going to talk a little Ruby over there. So
Can you
just
talk Ruby's?
Mike.
Ruby slippers now? Can you talk about him? Can
I
she?
can. Yeah, she can now. Yeah,
She can.
yeah,
Nice.
I can. I just gotta. It's
It's not
in
going
my.
to be any billion-dollar defamation lawsuits if you talk about Ruby.
I mean, come at me. I've got some silver. I've got some
Tell
silver.
people what you have.
It's a little bit. It's like 2 ounces. You can get $140.
He has a gun. He's fine. He
I
knows
do.
how to use
I do have
it.
that. I do have that. Yeah. All right. If you guys want to check that out, otherwise, stay tuned. Brad and Abby. I think they already are live, but I think they do
2 more
their
minutes.
show,
Should
so,
be.
uh,
Yeah,
what do
I'll raid over to Brad and Abby, and Brian and I will be back here tomorrow morning with Badlands Daily as well. So tune in for that at 10 a.m. Eastern time.
Yep. What you got coming up, Colonel?
We're starting a new book at my 4 o'clock. And we're going to talk about, I don't know if you've heard about all of the news about the Swiss banks and UBS and all of that other stuff going on right now. Well, we're going to go over some testimony about UBS, Booz Allen, and the CIA from a whistleblower a long time ago that I think kind of fits into what we're dealing with right now. So we're going to start that tomorrow at 4 o'clock on my X and Rumble channel. And of course, I'll be with Alpha tomorrow night at 9:30.
Can you say what the book is?
It is called Shell Game, a military whistleblowing report to Congress.
Nice.
Excellent. All right,
Well,
guys. Well, thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you. I'll see some of you guys over on my show in about 30 minutes, but we'll see the rest of you guys tomorrow morning on Badlands Daily. Hit the thumb.
Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video. And a special thank you to all of our advertising partners. Please remember to shift your dollars to support those businesses that support Badlands Media.